28 minutes to 9. What on earth went wrong with Theresa May's Downing Street operation? People focus on the election campaign, and there's no question that that went badly, but others say the key to understanding the Conservative disaster is the way that Downing Street under Theresa May had already been operating, with the tight control in particular of her two main aides, Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill, and a sense among everyone else, including senior cabinet ministers, that they were frozen out. Katie Perrior is on the line, who was for 10 months Mrs May's Downing Street Director of Communications. Good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, thanks. How dysfunctional was it?
It was pretty dysfunctional, although I do want to say that Mrs May has some real qualities, and she's a good person, and I feel really bad for her today because, yes, she takes responsibility for this, as she will, because she has this sense of public duty and service that runs right through her, but at the same time I do feel that quite sorry for her personally, because
why didn't she?
It's a tough environment.
Why didn't she, if you say she is a good person and she knew what she wanted to do, and you must, when you joined her, have thought that she knew what she wanted to do and approved of those things, why wasn't she able to do it?
Oh, it's a question I used to ask myself on many occasions. I think that, being in the Home Office for such a long time with her top team, she became accustomed to that being it. And of course, running the Home Office is very different from running the country. And so, trying to make that change to number 10, I think probably was a little bit more difficult than she possibly anticipated. But I used to wonder why, because actually she needed to broaden her circle of advisors. She needed to have some few grey hairs in there who had been around the block a bit in politics, who could say, don't do that, don't make enemies when you don't need to.
You write in the Times today about a conversation that happened around the Copeland by-election, which is just sort of jaw-dropping in a way. Tell us about this. Is the kind of thing, an example of the kind of thing happening behind the scenes.
Well, we were going to an 8:30 meeting every morning at Theresa May's office, and the atmosphere would be great if the Chiefs of Staff were not there, and terrible if the Chiefs of Staff were there.
This is Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill.
Correct. And so we would be able to speak freely if they weren't around, and if they were around, you don't speak. And Stephen Parkinson, the political director, a really nice guy, he was explaining the electoral chances of winning in Copeland, and everybody was kind of backing him, saying, good luck, Stephen, hope it goes well, you've done work really hard. And Fiona here was at the back of the room bellowing out, why aren't you doing more? Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? And it was one of the rare times that I saw the Prime Minister intervene and basically say, you're wrong, Fiona, you don't quite understand how this works if you think that that's a good idea. But most of the time we would sit there and often hear Fiona come up with ideas which were quite frankly crazy, and we'd say nothing. And but when they weren't in the room, it was a much better, free-flowing conversation with some brilliant people.
And did they also, in your opinion, did Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill also bully and badly treat cabinet ministers?
I think so. I think that there was not enough respect shown to people that spent 20 years in office or 20 years getting to the top seat in government. I felt that sending people text messages, rude text messages, were unacceptable. I felt that actually what the Prime Minister needs when you're going through a tough time like negotiating Brexit is diplomats, not street fighters. They only really know one way to operate, and that is to have enemies. And I'm sure I'm one of them this morning.
But you go back then to this business of why Theresa May wouldn't know that herself. It does suggest, doesn't it, there is something very limited about her, that she'd be unable to understand why that kind of performance doesn't work.
Well, quite possibly, but the thing is, in politics, no one is, 100% perfect. So if you have those weaknesses within you, then you hire people who can do those things for you. So if you're not this great communicator that's on the phone to people this morning, telling them that, to candidates, I'm sorry, or, I want to work with you in the future, come with me, then you hire people that do that for you. And I'm afraid she didn't have those qualities herself, but she hired people around her that didn't have them either.
Why did you leave in the end?
Two things. First of all, I came from running my own business for 10 years, so I did it the wrong way round. You're meant to do all the hard work in government first and then set up being self-employed. So I really missed the freedom. I never was a lifer in there for a long time.
Were you pushed out there?
No, I probably was only going to ever do 2 years. But at the same time, I've got to say, every month that went past, I thought, well, brilliant. I've been hanging on for another month because it was pretty toxic.
So you weren't fired. I mean, you must have said to people, this isn't the way to do it. And when you said it to them, and indeed possibly to the Prime Minister herself, did you get any reaction from them?
I had two major kind of blow-ups in November and February where I kind of pointed out that this was not the way I thought that the place should run, and that didn't go down too well, as you can imagine. I mean, Fiona Hill wanted to be the communications director for the campaign, and she pretty much said, "There's no room for you." And I said, "Well, you know what? I don't want to be here either, so that suits me just fine."
So, although you weren't actually formally fired, you feel that you were pushed out. There wasn't room for you and your way of thinking in Number 10.
I think the Prime Minister would have probably carried on with me for probably till Christmas or the following year, but actually, it was pretty pointless. Journalists could see that too. They could see that, if you're not getting on in the job and you feel that actually you're not being listened to, then there's no point you being there. In communications, you don't have a dog and bark yourself. If you don't want to hire someone for their advice, you shouldn't be hiring them.
Katie Perrior, thank you.